Oh,
Like, are you gonna do the thumbs up thing to Garrett?
yeah,
again?
Garrett, do you just want me to point at you again, like last time?
Let's do it. Yes, sir.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bona Fide Talk. Welcome back. We have a groundbreaking episode for you here tonight. Episode 010. Yep. If you can count, that is 10. We have officially started our 10th episode tonight. Never thought we'd make it here, but damn it, are we glad that we did. And we thank you guys for making it all happen, sticking with us the entire way, and being fans and listening in, giving feedback. So we please encourage you to continue to do so that we can grow this from 10 episodes and maybe to 100, to 1,000, hell, to 1 billion. Who knows? Who knows? Stay tuned and we'll find out together. Guys, as we always start off, Cameron, what you drinking on over there?
I picked up a new one at the store tonight. Got a little Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. So I just went for something a little different. I like the guy, the little, it's like he's in the Air Force or something, pilot. It looked pretty sick. So it's a Belgian IPA, and it's pretty good. It's got a crisp taste to it, and it's not too hard to drink. So I like it.
Right on, right on. Tell me about it, Blake. What you got?
Well, since it's election season, still gotta support the old boy here in the koozie. But same thing as last episode. The overly friendly Holy City IPA. I liked it. I had a few left. Decided not to go too hard this weekend and held on to them.
Sweet.
That was
Brian?
your first mistake. Little creature comforts, as always.
God bless.
America.
Ran out of all my NASCAR beers, your dad would call it.
Yep. You're a creature of habit with your creature comfort, my friend. I love it.
Yep.
I'm also a creature of habit.
Old Faithful.
It stays stocked in the fridge and so it gets drank. Miller Lite. Come on. I wouldn't even probably say that Miller Lite is my favorite domestic beer. It's just so consistent. It's available and it's always cheap. Like whenever you go out to the bars, you can always count on Miller Lite being one of the cheapest of the domestic beers. If you're ever trying to save some cash when you're pounding some beers with the boys at the bars. So anyway, Old Faithful there. Not much has changed around these parks. So speaking of my dad,
hair.
Yeah, finally cut the mullet. The mullet's gone. I'm really upset about it, but don't you worry, guys. The mustache has come in full force since. I've got to have something treacherously ugly on my face at all times, and the mustache is.
Are you allowed near elementary schools and playgrounds?
Funny you mentioned that. No. Nah. But anyway, so I'm having fun with it. Anyway, I lost my train of thought there. You called. Oh, No, you're good, brother. Talking about my dad. So Saturday
what do you
night.
end up doing?
Well, I was just gonna tell the audience and you two that Brian, our buddy Michael Newsom, my dad and I went out on Saturday night and got some beers and some food. We were gonna go to Topgolf. Topgolf had a 4-hour wait, and we basically just laughed that off and went hunting for some sports bar to go sit down at, watch the Braves game, and drink some beer. And Cameron, you're gonna get an absolute kick out of this. We went to a place next to Topgolf. I'm not gonna say the name over the podcast just to save their dignity if it remains. But we pull up to this restaurant, and Brian Newsom and I walked up to the little counter to talk to the lady, and we are like, hey, you got any free tables? We got 4. And she's like, what are you guys doing in here? And we're like, we just have 4, just at one table. And she's like, no, what are you guys doing in here? You're supposed to have masks on. We can't let you in if you don't have a mask on. And I was like, okay, well, we don't have them, so do you have any you can give us? And she was like, yeah, we have them, but we'll sell them to you for $1. And I was like, okay, yeah, not happening. So would you like to lose our business, or can we get a table for 4? And she was just like, yeah, you have to have a mask. It's our company policy or whatever. So we just bailed. They lost a lot of business.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's sad, bro. I thought you were gonna bring up something else. I'm glad you didn't. But yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
The first time I've been kicked out of somewhere for not wearing a mask. Everywhere else I've been and not wearing a mask has been fine. But yeah, straight up asked to leave.
Wow.
So what were they? Did you only need a mask to walk from the entrance to your table, or were they expecting you to wear a mask while you were at your table?
I think just to get to the table.
Seated.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, obviously, it's got to be some kind of restraint to be able to eat while you're wearing a mask. I haven't tried that yet personally, but it's got to be tough. So I don't know, dude. It was strange. It was a tough situation, and you know what? It happens. We're living in this divisive state of people not even really being that sure whether or not the mask thing is the right course of action, and it being very divisive in our society today. And that was a perfect example of it.
Yeah, but everyone's talking about struggling for money and struggling for this and that, but they're turning down business.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a harsh reality. So anyway, that's that. Brian, you want to take us from here?
Yeah. So tonight's episode is focused around goal setting. So not just your, as Blake would call it, your hippy dippy bullshit, or what I like to say, social media's impact on goal setting and all the fluffy, look good, do good bullshit that you see come around Christmas and New Year's. But this conversation will be more geared towards all 4 of us. What are kind of, everybody, if you've been listening for a while, what our outlooks are, but what's the destination? What's the goal? Where do you want to go? What do we see 5, 10, I don't know, 20 years, stuff like that. So yeah, I just want to introduce the topic for tonight. We're really going to be hitting deep on what our motivations for our why. Why do we wake up every day? Why do we get jobs? What do we want out of life, when it really kind of breaks it down. So I introduced social media's impact on goal setting and stuff like that. And if you're on Instagram, Twitter, whatnot, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the influencer culture and the gurus that will sell you a $10,000 course and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to open the field to discussion between all 4 of us and really drive and see what we think about social media's impact on goal setting, and how it's kind of become this fad almost, that everybody's looking at your social media, so you're putting your best self out there, and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm portraying this a lot in a negative light right now, but I do think there is some positives. I just kind of wanted to turn the floor to y'all before I really get too ingrained in the nitty gritty type stuff. And I think it's a good discussion piece. So
yeah, well, real quick, Cameron, I'm just real quick. It's always kind of funny talking about the social media influencers and stuff. It's always kind of funny whenever you have a friend or someone that you follow, a colleague, that kind of goes from being Joe Blow or Jane Doe or whoever to trying to obviously become some kind of influencer. Whether that be doing the pyramid scheme, makeup sales, or just posting pictures of their ass flaunting on social media, whatever the case may be. It's always kind of funny to see that process, that transition. But some, you have to have conviction in whatever it is that you're doing if you're trying to become an influencer. And that word might even have a negative connotation, influencer. Maybe just a person who is just trying to, share with their belief system or whatever. But anyway, make sure you have conviction in whatever it is that you're selling. And that could be yourself, that could be a product, a business model, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect because that goes in right what I was going to say about social media influencers and the kind of products they are putting out there and the kind of stuff they're putting out. The most important thing, I think, is exactly what you're saying, the kind of value you're creating in the world. But people are really just concerned, and you hear this term a lot on social media, is securing the bag. Like it's all about the bag of money. Like everyone's just really after the money. They're not after, and money really, in my opinion, doesn't have much value. I mean, of course, we could go into the whole financial Federal Reserve and everything, and but really just securing the bag money, like that's the main focus. But creating value, like real value in your community and everything, isn't. And that's kind of the sad thing of social media and how it's influenced people to just want the money and the clout. So it's kind of sad, but
yeah,
it also helps people promote stuff that does have real value. So don't want to just throw it all down.
right. Yeah, I think social media is a good outlet for people to use. It gives everyone a voice since everyone has a platform on social media. The Probably the biggest negative outcome of social media, especially in recent years, is just kind of like I don't know if you mentioned this yet, Brian, but it's the fluffy look good bullshit that so many quote unquote influencers, not even influencers, just any of us when we post something on social media, we post the best aspects of our lives on there, and so if you're not in a good place in life and you see all these people posting things on social media, whether it be your friends or whether it be someone you look up to smiling, they got some filter over their face to make them look better than they normally do in real life. You get a kind of a skewed depiction of what life is actually really like. You see, you're like, oh, all these people are happy. How come I'm not happy? How come all these people have a better life than me? And then you start comparing yourself to other people. I think Teddy Roosevelt said, maybe I don't know, might have been someone else. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, so I'm just gonna roll with that. He said, comparison is the thief of joy, and so that's what we do on social media. You compare your life to other people, so that's when it can become negative. But I do think it's a good way for people to have a voice, and if you're of a more entrepreneurial mindset, it gives you a way to promote your business, to sell something, to put something out there. And what you're putting out there is it's kind of up to you and your character. If you're just in it to secure the bag, as Cameron put it, then maybe you should put some other goals in mind. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Hey, real quick, Brian. Brian, can I say one thing real quick and then let you go? Just remember that, like, regarding social media, since we're having this conversation right now, remember that the most invaluable asset that we all have is our reputation. And, social media ties itself into that. You kind of have the power to build your image and reputation like on your social media accounts, and the way that you handle yourselves on there has a pretty solid impact on how people perceive you as a person. Yeah, so that should be taken into account. That's it, Brian.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, even through like, running this podcast and like um posting stuff on Instagram, it's like you constantly have to think like, especially with the platform we have, like what message do we want to put out there? Does it represent all four of us and what we think and stuff like that? And granted, when you have four people, it's never gonna solely represent every single body's viewpoint, but that's the beauty of four people coming together, that's kind of understood that, it's here for open discussion and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's just crazy too how much social media like interferes with the day to day. Like if you use your like analytics app, like the screen time monitoring, it can get pretty I don't toxic's not the right word for it, but I would say unhealthy to some point if you're not monitoring it. Like you mentioned some like the negative impacts psychologically. I think there's a lot of awareness around that, and I'm trying to transition into some of the positive stuff. But I think it has, especially with COVID, I think people are kind of realizing their dependency on, the different media outlets, just because, not being out and about in everyday life and whatnot. I know a lot of people are kind of cutting back on it and trying to get back into their life now that, some of the restrictions are down and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that everybody should work on constantly. That should it almost needs to be a class for school now, how to cut down on social media and the internet. Because I mean, I didn't grow up how some of these kids are growing up, but I had a Facebook when I was like, I don't know, 12. So, but yeah, the cutting back and everything, I've been trying to do for a while, but because there is some good stuff on social media, like we promote ourselves on social media. It's so hard to just delete like Instagram. I've tried it for weeks. I've had Twitter off my phone for months because I don't, do any promotion or anything on that, or don't care as much about it. And I realized I was using it way too much and putting way too much out there. That was like, I really just want to talk to people in my immediate circle, people that I know personally. And that's another point is I don't like, I've tried to cut back so much and I probably only follow like 200 something people. And I couldn't say that I know 100% of them like really well on a personal basis to where like if they put something out there, I can kind of put it through that filter of like, okay, I know this person. Like, what do they mean by this? I just see like what they're putting out there. So it's kind of hard and you gotta work on that. But it also leads into Brian, that guy that you follow and I've followed now
AJ.
is talking about investments and stuff. Like there is good stuff out there, and that's like why I keep social media and I try and get that stuff, like try to follow those kind of accounts and stuff that are posting like actual motivational and valuable things.
Yeah. Brian, also kind of going back to something that you shared on Instagram, I really enjoyed Brandon Turner. He is a member of Bigger Pockets podcast, and I absolutely encourage any of you who are interested in real estate investment or honestly any kind of investments, any kind of finance, to go check out Bigger Pockets. They're a great forum. They bring a lot of people together, have a lot of great information. But anyway, so Brandon Turner had a clip on his podcast that he shared on Instagram. And basically what Brandon was saying was you kind of become the media that you consume. Okay. So that could be your social media. That could be, what kind of news outlets you listen to or read. You become what you consume. If you want to just follow a bunch of, investing accounts, if you want to follow a bunch of sports accounts, if you want to follow your friends, or a bunch of like, funny accounts, whatever. You become like what you kind of dive into from a media perspective. What you consume then consumes you and becomes you.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
you are the sum of the the five people that you hang around, and so what, and that's probably not exclusive to friends and family. It definitely includes any information you take in. That what you experience right in front of you is what shapes your life. It's what shapes your decisions. We we live in the present, and we take in information that's coming at us each and every day, and that's what shapes our brain, and propels us into the future.
Yeah.
You just got to be.
Yep.
It's important to be conscientious of what information you're taking in. Kind of you got to use some self awareness to think about how information is making you feel, how it's affecting you, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month down the line. And then, you know, if you were in a worse spot, X amount of, you know, time down the line, then, you know, maybe you need to do some reevaluating, rethinking of what you're surrounding yourself with, whether it be people or media.
Yeah. You said something there, you know, like understanding what you're taking in and whatnot. And so Bigger Pockets like really kind of helped with that. So we're talking about, you know, like social media and goal setting and whatnot, and trying to transition some of the positives. So I would say for me, some of the media I consume daily would be podcasts. So we mentioned, you know, AJ with the self-storage stuff, and then Bigger Pockets as well. And I would say that's probably at least 50% of my media consumption, which has been a good thing. But then again, like too much of anything can be a bad thing. Like I don't think I personally could sit through a whole 3 hour like Joe Rogan podcast, stuff like that. I would just get so sick of it. But I feel like an hour is like the perfect amount for me to just pick that off in a day or whatnot.
Yeah.
I used to listen to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, full 3 hours, multiple podcasts a day, dude. Because there was a little period where I was studying for my real estate exam, and that's kind of the only thing I really had to do at the time, and I didn't have enough motivation to do anything else. So I would like play video games and listen to podcasts like at the same time, and then study for my real estate for like half the day. So I'd study for real estate and like play video games, and I would listen to like two podcasts a day, and I just put them on like 1.5 speed and just crank through. That's
1.5 speed. Wow.
Yeah, not quite 2 speed. You know, 2 speed, you can't even understand them. I would suggest trying out half speed. It's hilarious. Sounds like they're drunk. If you listen to any podcast at half speed, it's hilarious.
Who of us four do you think would sound the funniest on half speed?
I don't know.
I think Brian would sound the funniest, honestly.
Brian, monotone, just half speed.
I really.
I'm trying to fall asleep. Put that shit on.
Brian Eduardo.
Oh God.
That shit on.
All right, Brian. We'll quit poo-pooing on you right now.
We can do that on Apple Podcasts now, actually, since we're on there.
Oh yeah, we can listen to ourselves.
Yeah, editor, clip this in real quick, like me talking really slow.
Well, shout out to Apple for finally allowing us into their marketplace. Sheesh. Yes. And shout out to our Apple Podcast listeners tuning in. Glad to have you here. But anyway, Brian, you know, let's go ahead and start transitioning. You know, we've been talking for a minute about New Year's resolutions. You know, we've been talking about social media and the negatives there as far as like short-term gratification being kind of like the overarching you know, mainstay of social media. You know, oh, I'm going to post this picture, I'm going to get 400 likes and I'm going to be the man, you know, like that kind of stuff, right? So if you continue to put your focus on, you know, getting posts to, you know, from 400 likes to 500 likes, you know, what is that saying about your trajectory there? So let's talk a little bit about trajectory. And with trajectory, you know, you've got to have an endpoint, right? So you've got to have goals. You know, you've got to have landing spots of success. And Brian, if there's one person I know who is a master of long-term vision and understanding the end game, it's you. So why don't you go ahead and just kick us off on that subject?
Yeah, so we'll transition out of social media, and you hit the nail on the head right there with the short-term like gratification, where people care more about the numbers and who's looking at their shit versus the actual content behind it. Whereas if they reverse that and cared about the metrics that they were actually measuring and putting out there versus who's looking at it and actually just focusing on it, you know, that's how you long term build traction and just kind of it's all baby stepping up. So I'll use like an example, and I don't like to be like pompous or toot my horn or some bullshit like that, whatever you want to call it. But for example, buying a house for me, I had to put like 3.5% down. It was a whole process. And I started preparing for this, I think it was my sophomore year of college. So I was very fortunate to where when I would go home and work during the summer, whether that's an internship or whatnot, my expenses were pretty low. You know, I was living with my mom, so food was covered. Uh, Thankfully, also gas. So getting to and from work, lunches, like I didn't have to pay for that. And like really grateful for her and like the sacrifices she made so that I can do that. But I fully see it as my duty to take that starting point and go even further. But so I started saving, wow, that would have been like 4 years ago or something like that. So,
Hey, what was that process like, Brian? Just talk just real briefly about like the saving process, like sacrifices along the way, or what your process was like when you were saving.
Right. So normally when you start, you make a goal, right? So we were talking about bigger pockets earlier. They have this kind of philosophy called house hacking, the whole premise of it, and there's a lot of different variations you can do, but it's, you know, you get out, you buy a house, you get into it, and then you rent out the bedrooms, try to get as close to that mortgage as you can. That way you are essentially owning your own house and building equity for less money per month than it would be if you went and rented a middle market apartment. So to get to that point, I needed, just for transparency, it was like 14,000 or something, I think, all in when I finally got in. So I started saving, like I said, sophomore year. That summer, I was making $10 an hour at the Porsche dealership. We talked about manifesting too. So Porsche, obviously, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a job, but as everybody knows, I love cars. So I was like, oh, let me go do something fun, but also something to make money. So like I said, I was making $10 an hour. Had a nice lesson my freshman year. I went to New Orleans and maxed out my credit card, so I had to pay that off that summer. I've never had bad debt since. So learned that credit lesson very early on.
That's a good lesson.
So,
good lesson to learn early.
Yeah, definitely. So that summer I only saved about $2,000, and then the next summer, you know, doubled or tripled, and then the summer after that, you know, maintained. So it's really about starting small and then always having the goal to every year get incrementally more and more and more, and saving that and driving it into something. And I mentioned house hacking. So now that I'm not only building equity in my house, so I'm not pissing money away on rent, but it's also at a lower rate. So it enables me to save money even more aggressively for property number two. And then it's a cycle. It's just a machine, you know, it's a snowball. So I forget the original question. I know I went on a tangent right there, but
no, you're cool.
I hope that answers it.
No, I just asked you about saving, and you nailed that. So just keep on going.
Yeah. So that was the goal, and then we'll get more into the personal goals later on. But something I wanted to talk about, and I think I just kind of explain it, is the things that you want like in your life right now are typically the results of decisions that you made years ago. And I'm a very like routine oriented person and whatnot, but at the same time I also understand that sometimes people do, like, there is an essence of luck, but normally when you work harder and you plan, the luckier you are. Sorry, that's a hard one. But yeah, so it's just, that's kind of the point that I wanted to make, was like, if there's stuff that you want right now that maybe you can't afford or something, maybe stop and think, and maybe you don't first need it right now, but think in like 3 or 5 years, like, what is it going to be then? And do I want to have this same feeling then? If the answer is probably no, start planning now and backwards engineer that goal to what you want to manifest. Yeah. I know a lot of this is a little, as Blake would say, hippy dippy, but it works.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
You mentioned luck. You know, you can look at luck a few different ways. Wise man once said, my dad always says this, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And I think really the biggest piece of luck is preparation, like you mentioned, Brian. Yeah, we're all going to get lucky. Let's go to real estate, for example. We might get really lucky 3 or 4 times in our life with a really good deal, but we wouldn't have been able to act on that deal, that opportunity, unless we had done the preparation, had the knowledge in place, been ready for that moment, right? Sports, okay? Let's say you're a sophomore and, star senior wide receiver gets hurt. Well, if you've been busting your ass and you were in good shape and ready to go, that's not lucky for you. That's opportunity meeting preparation, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's key to understand is like, okay, yeah, short term, maybe things are not good for you right now. Maybe you're in a job you hate, you're laid off looking for a job, you're trying to kickstart your career. Well, take inventory of the things that you're passionate about and the things that you want to do, and start learning as much as you can about those things. And then one day when that opportunity comes around, you'll be ready for it. And then you are in charge and manufacturing your own luck, opposed to just waiting on the world to serve you up a free lunch or an opportunity. So anyway.
Never free lunch.
Yeah, definitely. Right. That the word preparation goes along with the word I heard a bunch in a book I've been reading recently. And I said reading, really just listening to on Audible.
What's the difference these days, honestly?
Right. But it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he talks a lot about the habit 1. There's a lot about proactivity and being proactive and not letting, being in control really of what happens next versus being reactive. So proactive versus reactive. Reactive, you're just reacting to the things that happen around you. But proactive is you're getting ahead of those things that are going to happen and being prepared, preparation. And so like a little quote from this is, the greatest harm is the harm you do to yourself in response to the seeming harm from the outside. So that's just like has to do with being proactive versus reactive, and not letting, getting in front of those things and not letting them affect you too much. So like you're saying with the real estate deals, a lot of real estate deals don't go how they're planned. Like that's one of the things about houses is you can't see all the problems from the surface. You can't see termite damage, mold behind the walls, mold behind the tub, different stuff like that. You can't see the asbestos between the tile in the basement. So you might get into a deal and stuff goes south and it doesn't turn out how you were planning. But if you're proactive in the right things, then you'll still come out on top, maybe not as high as you'd like to have been, but still come out on top. And then you can't just like quit. That was a big thing with investors that I saw, is some of them would just quit. But then the real professional investors, they were just rolling through the deals, rolling with the punches. Some were better than others. You deal with the headaches, and a deal might turn upside down and you lose 20 grand on it. But if you're there at every opportunity prepared, then you will get quote unquote lucky and hit a big deal and just make a bunch of money, and everybody's looking at you like you're lucky, but you just went through 5 other deals that didn't turn out as well. So
right,
that's a big thing.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a trend amongst successful people is, taking charge of their own lives and, being proactive and taking the initiative on things that they want. I think I think humans are naturally lazy and they seek comfort, and it's you kind of trick yourself into being reactive, for example, and it's easier to just kind of sit and let life throw things in front of you, and you catch them at will.
Right.
But I think it's important uh, for overall success to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and be proactive in this scenario. Most things that make you uncomfortable end up putting you ahead in the long run. Exercise is a good example of that. It fucking sucks to go out and run a few miles. Going to the gym. It's hard to build up that momentum, but that's the key. You put yourself in a situation that makes you uncomfortable at first, and it might be uncomfortable. To take the initiative when you're sitting on your couch looking at your phone or watching Netflix or something like that. You're like, oh, I don't want to move. I'm good right here. I'm watching my show.
Watch Vikings.
I want to watch Vikings. But if you gotta get up and take that initiative, because it's gonna pay off in the long run, and it's gonna be easier to build that momentum, and start getting that snowball effect rolling.
One consistent habit of successful people that I know in my life is finding, and this might sound like crazy person talk, but I think it's legit, finding joy in the uncomfortable. Okay. Like you said, running a couple miles fucking sucks. Yeah, it does. My, as you hardcore listeners know, my September goal is to run 31 miles, 50K this month. Making good progress there. It sucks, but there is such thing as a runner's high, right? There are people out there who literally love to do that stuff, right? You need to find whatever it is in your life that you love doing, or find something that you're really good at and be able to find joy in that uncomfortable thing that other people don't like to do, and that's how you can find success.
What does David Goggins say? Callous your brain.
Fuck yeah.
Stay hard, motherfucker.
And if you don't follow David Goggins on Instagram, motherfucker, you need to go follow him right now, because that is a motherfucker right there, dude. He's a dog. And whenever I see his post on Instagram, I'm like, damn, I know I'm about to have to get my ass outside and do something legit right now, because if not, I'm gonna feel like a piece of shit.
Have any of y'all ever heard of Robert Oberst? He's a strong man, and I watch his YouTube videos sometimes, just because I think he's funny, he's interesting to listen to. But he said something one time that I'll never forget. So he was in a video with someone, and that person asked him, he's like, how do you stay motivated to go to the gym all the time? How do you motivate yourself to work out as hard as you do? And he said, if you rely on motivation, then you're gonna fail, because motivation is not always there. In fact, it's rarely there. There's only bursts. You get little bursts, maybe watching a David Goggins video or something like that get you motivated. But that's not gonna make you better. You gotta force yourself to do the things that you don't want to do, where you're not motivated to do something. Where you're like, damn it, I don't want to get up off this couch, but you could be completely unmotivated. But you gotta view things like that as just another part of your day, like brushing your teeth. I don't think any of us enjoy brushing our teeth, but we got to do it so that people want to be around us. There's a lot of things that you don't want to do, but you got to view it as something you have to do, or else your life is gonna go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think the word there is discipline, right?
Yes,
I think it's discipline that is the difference between successful people over the long term and people who kind of phase out from short-term fads or New Year's resolutions, like you mentioned, Brian. We all want to be fit. We all want to be successful. We all want to have a bunch of money in the bank, have some assets, have, whatever it is that we want in life, right? But the thing is like, life is not easy, and the things that we want in life that are worth having are not easy either. So yes, motivation is fleeting in nature. It's quick to come and it's quick to go. But discipline is built through habits, right? And the science says that it takes humans
21, I think.
21 days to build a habit. And I think it's a 21-90 rule. So 21 days to build a habit, 90 days to make it a part of your
lifestyle.
Right. For example, here's a personal example. Okay. Beginning of this year, this was not a New Year's resolution thing, so don't accuse me here. I wanted to start making my bed. I wanted that to be like something that I started to do. And for, about a month, I was like, shit, got to make the bed. Damn, I want to be running late, whatever, right? But now I don't even think about it. When I get up in the morning, whether I sleep in, whether I get up early, it's the first thing I do. I don't even think about it. My brain is turned off and it just makes the bed, right? That's a small example, but it's something that I used to not do and used to not care about, but now it's something that I don't even think about that I consistently do. And I think the strong man that you mentioned, Blake, I think it's kind of a similar process there to where he's like, okay, yeah, I don't wake up and think about going to the gym. It's just what I do, right? If you want to be really good at marketing and social media and you spend hours a day like just doing it, just grinding it out, learning about it, making posts, creating content, it's just what you do. You're not thinking about doing it. You're just doing it because it's a part of your lifestyle. So that's just something to consider. If you want something to be a part of your lifestyle, dedicate towards it and do it for 3 months, and you'll be more likely to make it stick.
Yeah, routines are extremely important. However, so always me playing devil's advocate, especially somebody with like OCD. So routines can actually become toxic for me in some cases. So you have to really keep a good eye on it. But routines in and of themselves, like you said, incorporating in your daily life cycle and whatnot is very, very important. But I also think there's a degree of variety that you have to pump into your routine. So it almost sounds like counterintuitive. But like mixing it up, for example, so you avoid burnout. So I think one of the easiest things is working out and what people can relate to. So initially this would have been like, I don't know, 2 years ago, whenever I was interning, I was waking up at 6 a.m., doing the gym Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. And I hit like week 5 and dude, I was done. I hit that 21-day thing. I was like, oh, I've got a habit and whatnot. But like, dude, I was burning out. Like it just wasn't fun anymore. It took all the variety and volatility away from it. And was I getting results? Sure. But my mental state, dude, I was just fucking pissed off all the time. I was like, this sucks. So what I'm trying to get at is, finding something that you can maintain is normally the biggest thing, and then you maintain it and then you mix it up every now and then. So for me now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can do 3 days a week. I can wake up and go to the gym, and then Tuesday, Thursday, I give myself an extra hour to sleep in. And that has been the balance for ever since I started working back in January. And I haven't skipped a beat. I haven't missed a single Friday. You get to the end of the week, you're like, oh, I could sleep in, I could do it. But I haven't burned myself out. And I've introduced variety. So some mornings I listen to a podcast at the gym. Call me a psychopath. I don't know. I don't need, pumped up music, but some days I do. And so just like introducing variety into the routine, because at the same time, you're still doing a routine. So you're still structuring yourself. But the variety helps me so much, and it's powerful.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so yes, Brian, you brought up a good point that I want to talk about and get everyone's ideas on. So I'm a believer, like you are, in the importance of a routine, right? I think it's a streamline of productivity. As someone right now currently who's not living in a consistent routine, I can tell you that it's compared to times that I have been consistent, not going crazy, not yet, but just trying to find things to like really fill the time. Right. I mean, the saying goes, idle hands are the devil's playing ground. There's validity in that, to where, complacency and comfort is able to, take hold of people who are not busy, people who are lazy, and just kind of compounds that. So yes, a routine is important, but there is a point, like you mentioned, where it becomes cumbersome and where it becomes toxic, like you mentioned. All right, so 5 years goes by and you have done the same thing Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and nothing's changed. And you're sitting there, the things that you want in life haven't come, and you haven't done anything to change it, right? So that's where a routine can be toxic, to where you're in a rut. You create a rut, you're not in a routine. So I'd love to get Blake and Cameron's input on striking that balance between establishing a routine to streamline productivity, but also avoiding a rut to where you're also holding back your growth in that situation.
Yeah, I mean that's a super hard balance to make. It's like walking a tightrope. You already said that a routine is good for productivity, but it can, if you keep carving out that path, then you're going to dig yourself into a hole that you can't get out of. So I think it's important to have goals. You can use developing a routine to meet those goals, but as long as you have goals, it's going to keep you out of that, or it's going to keep you from developing that rut. You know, I don't want to make it sound like I've got everything figured out or anything like that, because I sure as hell don't. But for me, you're graduating college and moving up here to Charleston, I had the goal in mind that I was gonna live in an apartment for the first 6 months that I was up here, kind of get a lay of the land, and then buy a house, to help set me up for future success. And it that ended up working out. I think I lived in my apartment for about 7 months. I moved out the beginning of August, and now I own a house. And I know one of the things I've definitely learned about myself, graduating high school and going off to college, and then going from college to actually entering the working world, is I have a hard time dealing with change. And I think the reason for that is I I just naturally like to form a routine. All of us, we grow up with our parents, go throughout elementary, middle and high school, and we kind of, that's our life. Things are just kind of given to us, and we have a lot less responsibility. You go from high school to college, so it's a big shakeup. You move into a dorm. You're on your own for the first. You're really on your own for the first time, and you have a whole new set of challenges for you. And so it's this whole new frontier that you have to learn how to navigate. And you're just, as you're navigating it, you're just working on kind of carving that path, sawing or blazing that trail. And by the time I finished my senior year of college, I was super comfortable. I had developed a routine. I knew how to handle my classes. Being an engineering major thing, the classes weren't always the easiest, but I got to a point where I had figured out how to study, and figured out how to study. Learned what worked for me. Learned how many hours I needed to put in to get in the grades I needed to get. Ended up getting a decent job at a college, and then moved up here to Charleston. First few months here in Charleston, it was it was pretty difficult, getting into that routine of waking up early in the morning, spending 8 to 10 hours at work, coming back. You know, it was a little bit shaky at first. I found a routine. Even moving from my apartment to my house, it shakes things up. It introduces a lot of change, but I'm starting to, after being here for a month, I've started getting that routine down. Um, but yeah, so I wouldn't say I've definitely bordered on getting into a rut, but you gotta plan for the future. You gotta have those goals to introduce that change, because that's gonna carve new pathways in your brain. It's gonna And then you're gonna keep working on those pathways, start developing that routine,
Yeah.
and if you let that routine go for too long, then that's gonna end up being in a rut. I know right
Mhm.
now, I'm here for the next 4 years. Probably gonna stay in this house for the rest of those 4 years. But my next goal is getting out of the Navy and finding a job in. Honestly, I don't know what job I want outside of the Navy, but I definitely know I want to move somewhere else. Moving out west has always been a goal of mine since I was growing up, and you know I think that's definitely gonna set up a whole new set of challenges, a new
Mhm.
a new set of pathways that I'm gonna have to learn how to carve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just
You
goal setting,
mentioned
I think, is
something.
important there.
Mhm. You mentioned being scared of change, which I think innately something all humans are afraid of change, and the uncertainty with it. And especially me. So I mentioned having OCD. That's one of the big parts about it is being obsessive and compulsive about having things your way, being it's not even a set thing. It kind of applies to a bunch of different things. This is a conversation for another time, but exposing like yourself to uncomfortable situations and uncertainty, and understanding that you truly never will understand the result until it actually happens, until the time comes. So a lot of the time you will spend, in a rut thinking like, oh, what if this happens? Like, for your example, I moved to Charleston, I'm kind of starting new here. Like, oh, this is kind of scary. I don't know as many people as I did at Georgia. Like, there's a lot of challenges that come with that, but embracing that change and welcoming it, honestly, is what kind of drives you to kind of, create yourself as a person. It's those experiences that are extremely fucking scary and uncertain in the moment, but in a couple years you're going to look back and be like, wow, that was probably one of the best things I ever did. Or maybe you won't. Who knows? We don't know what happens in the future. And that's kind of one of the points I'm trying to make is, you can always set goals and measure them, but be flexible,
Yeah.
And that part
Definitely.
of the routine, the rigidity, like you have to be flexible and change that dot where you're trying to get sometimes.
You got to take a risk. I think that's another big thing. Yeah. Don't be afraid of taking risk. As long as it's not unnecessary risk.
Definitely. That's something I've gone through big time in the last 3 or 4 years. I took a big risk and just left college altogether and started doing real estate. And since then, it's been 3 years and I've had 3 or 4 different jobs. I'm bouncing all over the place, transitioning, every 6 months or so, it seems like. And sometimes it's hard to get into a routine. Like right now, I just started my new job about a month ago. And the thing about being a part-time employee is, schedules change, hours are different daily. It's not really a consistent schedule, so it's hard to get into a routine. And that's something I've been, struggling with this past month. I think I'll be able to figure it out in the months to come, for sure. But it's definitely been hard. A lot of things have changed. My worldview in the past 3 years has changed. Like everything's been changing, and you got to roll with it and keep building and keep readjusting goals. Like my goals 3 years ago are not my goals now. Like it's all different. It's all still up in the air, and that's why I try to write stuff down and get those goals out so I can work towards them and then adjust them if I need to.
That's good.
Yeah. Gary, you're muted.
Good call. All right. Yeah. So I feel like we're all kind of, Blake's going to go pee real quick. He can't hold his little baby bladder. I feel like we have all kind of been dancing around the subject while talking about it directly. So let's go ahead and talk specifically about goal setting. Okay. So, obviously there's 2 categories distinctly where goal setting comes into play. You've got your short-term goals and your long-term goals. Those 2 things need to be different, but they have to align in some capacity, right? So if I have a short-term goal of becoming the greatest fisherman of all time, or the long-term goal of becoming the greatest fisherman of all time, yet I'm spending hours and hours a day playing basketball, those 2 things aren't going to align, right? So you've got to find some kind of way to align those 2 things. We talked here extensively about routines. We talked about motivation and discipline. And all of these things come together each separately to combine into our goals, right? So, Brian, what do you think needs to come first? Do you think a long-term goal needs to come first, or do you think a short-term goal should build itself and manifest itself into a long-term goal?
My personal opinion is you have to have the vision first, and you define that vision, and that's the hard part too, because us being young, like, you might not have that yet, and it might really require some thinking, and you can't force it. Like, you organically want to, bring it about and be like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. But the thing about goal setting and stuff is you can't get somewhere if you don't know where you're going, because then you can't work towards it. So I would argue it's more important for somebody, say they, I don't know, maybe we're graduating college and they didn't really know what they wanted to do yet. I'm a big fan of, maybe go take a gap year, go like live somewhere, explore something, just do something. That's the biggest part, is doing something and not staying stagnant. And then working, and then one day, you can define that vision. Maybe it's a light bulb moment, or maybe it's something you organically built about and, created some identity capital in yourself. And you're like, this is what I want to do. I found it. I've defined it. And then take that point and just backwards engineer it. And we'll get into a later segment where we talk about our personal goals and whatnot. And I can kind of talk about that process and what it looks like for me. But yeah, once you define it and kind of backwards engineer it, for our YouTube listeners, you see that whiteboard behind Cameron, get to work, just start throwing shit on the wall, see what sticks, define it, and then take that point and create measurable timelines. But like I said earlier, be flexible. It doesn't have to be one linear path, and it won't be. I can guarantee you that. It's going to be a fucking up and down.
Yeah, definitely. I put stuff up on that whiteboard all the time. I just erased it before this because it's top secret classified, but
yes,
I use it.
Big ass one.
Yeah, I have two. I have a little small one with my September goals we talked about. So those are there daily to remind me. Just look at them, think about them, execute them. So it's important.
Right on. So Blake, we're talking about long-term and short-term goals, balancing them, aligning them, but also understanding and having an understanding of what needs to come first, long-term or short-term. I think we're kind of all here in agreement that long-term goals need to come first. And this can really be anything. It can be whatever it is that you want in your life. Whatever it is that you see it is that you see yourself down the future, and your short-term goals can be those things that get you there. I personally am a big believer in having those like short-term goals, right? That are like very professionally driven, very internally driven, but also having like some kind of short-term goal of like entertainment, of like happiness, of just something fun, something just like that, a hobby, whether it be a hobby, whether it be searching for a relationship, whether it be going out with friends on the weekend, making new friendships, joining a club, being involved in your community, like you need to have balance in your life to where you want to professionally build yourself into whatever it is that you want. You want to have as much money by this age so that you can retire, whatever it is that you want in life, but then also living in the present and having things that are, just that will help you achieve happiness in the present, right? God's gift to earth was his present, and it is our present, right? So you've got to, live for now, plan for the future, balance those two things together, and that may be the key to happiness.
Yeah, definitely. Putting into your routine, like we were talking about, can get redundant and you get burnt out. Putting into your routine just time for yourself. I mean, we've talked about mindfulness and meditation. That should be part of it. But also doing the things you like, hobbies. I've talked to my dad about this recently and my parents. It's just like, put into your schedule and your routine time for yourself, for your and for the things you like to do. Because that'll make you happier. And then when you go back and focus on the things that like you want to get done, then you have more I don't know, more energy, I guess. Because when you
refreshed.
when you set aside some time for yourself, you can somewhat re-energize yourself in doing the things you like. The things you like in the moment, so that you can work towards the long-term goals, for sure. Very important.
Yeah, I think long-term goals, at least in my opinion, are best kept in the back of your mindset. Something that's always there, but not something that you're necessarily constantly obsessing over. And the reason I say that is because I think if you're constantly, you know, thinking about if you're constantly thinking about a long-term goal, then you're not going to then that's going to lead to burnout. Um, you know, if you it's a long-term goal for a reason. It's something that happens many years down the line, and you know, if it's constantly something you're thinking about, then you know you might not be satisfied with the fact that you haven't reached that goal as soon as you would like to reach it. I kind of view short-term goals as, you know, miniature stepping stones towards that long-term goal. I think I mentioned this before, but I always before an before an exam, I always tell my students to, like, you know, especially the night before an exam, I always tell them to, you know, take that night for themselves. You know, they've at that point they know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know, or they don't know what they don't know. You know, spend time during that day studying for the exam, but don't burn yourself out. You know, you can't you're not gonna perform well on that test if you're you know, up all night worrying about it. Um, the best thing you can do at that point is, you know, take some time for yourself. Go for a run. Go watch something on Netflix. You know, just chill out and relax. And so that's, you know, that's maybe one short term goal of uh, being comfortable. You know, just kind of sinking into the couch and chilling out for a night. You know, other short-term goals such as, you know, you know, exercising for a week. I know Garrett, you know, running a mile a day for a month. You know, a month isn't a short amount of time, but that's more of a short-term goal in the grand scheme of things, and that's something that's going to kind of propel you to future success. So, you know, I think it's always important to, you know, have what you want in mind, but know that life is always going to throw challenges in front of you. And if you're constantly obsessed with meeting that long-term goal, then you're not going to be satisfied with the sharp turn that life throws you down.
Mm. Yeah. Another real quick just tidbit to add on to all that beautifulness that you just shared with us, Blake, is flexibility. Okay. How flexible do you think that we can be with our goals that we set? Okay. And I guess really in this situation, I'm talking more about long-term goals. Okay. And we're all going to share each of our long-term goals that we all have in our life here shortly, but just kind of getting y'all warmed up for this and just kind of getting y'all on the same page of what we think. So, okay, let's say my long-term goal, going back to the example I used earlier, I want to be the best fisherman in the world. Okay. 2 years go by, I'm practicing, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer.
Is this your actual long-term goal?
Stay tuned, listeners, and you'll find out. So 2 years goes by and I'm getting closer to that and I'm practicing and I'm doing all the things I need to do. But then I realize, you know what? I don't think I want to be a lake fisherman. I want to be a sea fisherman. Okay. So, like, is there a line that we can draw in the sand that says once you define a long-term goal, you're not allowed to divvy away from that? Or can we go from having one idea to changing to another idea and not be considered flailing pieces of paper in the wind?
So to answer that, I think there's a question you have to like ask yourself: am I being accountable, or am I minimizing the goal because I'm not reaching it? And if you can wholeheartedly say no, I just genuinely have a change of passion, like for the most part, yes, they're two very different things. But as you get into something, so like take somebody's career for an example. When they start out, they're probably, if you do what I do, you're going to be in a general analyst role. As you progress you're probably going to specialize. You're going to find one avenue that you really like, maybe you're really good at, or maybe there's an opportunity and you're going to pick that and you're going to go even further with it. The way the US is set up with our capitalist economy, the specialists are the ones that make the most money. They charge the highest rates, and that because they're specialists, they're rare. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, as long as you're not compromising the integrity of your goal to, allow yourself to meet a lower level because you don't want to push harder to get to the top or some other circumstance, as long as you don't compromise that goal integrity, I think it's natural to, choose a path and get a little more narrow as you get into it.
Yeah,
goal integrity. That's a good word.
I think it kind of depends on how passionate you are with that long-term goal. If it's something that you feel like you're meant to achieve, then you got to be open to the possibility for change. Because if you go out upon the path to set that goal and you're narrowing your mindset and you're not willing to change, well then you're going to be unsuccessful and you're going to be unhappy because if that's your view, then you're going in with the assumption that you control your future. And well, I said that's not exactly how I wanted to say that. You're going into that with the assumption that you consistently control the outcome of your decisions, and that's not always the case. You play a big role in determining the outcome of your decisions, but sometimes life just throws shit at you that you're not going to be able to control. So you got to be flexible in the path that you take to get there. And I think really the question is, setting what sort of timeline you're looking at in achieving a certain goal. If you say, in 10 years, I'm going to have, $20 million in the bank. I'm going to be, living in a mansion with, 3 kids, beautiful wife. If you plan on doing that in a 20-year time period, well, then it's pretty likely that you're not going to reach it in that exact 20-year, or what did I say, 10 years before? Mm-hmm. It's pretty likely that you're not going to meet that in that 10-year time frame. Something might happen to where, it pushes it out to 15 years. It could just so happen that it pushes it inwards to 5 years. There's things there's challenges and opportunities that life is going to throw in front of you that's going to change that. And you got to be willing to adjust those changes. And I think it's important to be cognizant of those changes or cognizant of those challenges and, learn how to be proactive in overcoming them. As Cameron mentioned earlier, you got to be proactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are you guys ready to share ours?
Let's get it.
Sure.
Yeah, we can get into that.
Yeah, let's do that. Real quick, just before we move on, I just want to re-solidify the importance of having goals, both short-term and long-term, aligning them, and also not forgetting about how important the present is, because at the end of the day, the only thing that we're guaranteed is now. So live your life to the fullest in the moment and never sacrifice, reality in your present moment for like something that may not be as just live life. That's basically what I'm getting at here. I don't need to add too many weird words in there. Anyway, who wants to start us off and go first with our long-term goals?
I'll roll with it.
Yeah.
So before I do so, I want to make a big distinction. So for me, when I think of my life, the big picture, what's going on, my quote unquote why. If you haven't heard that before, Bigger Pockets was the first place that really turned me on to defining your why. It's essentially, it is what it sounds like. Why do you wake up every day? What is, your ultimate purpose? And so for me, the way I define it, I split it into 2 categories, qualitative and then quantitative. So quantitative is going to be the more monetary, business oriented or career wise goals, whereas qualitative is going to be the stuff that is a little harder to put a number on, because like Blake mentioned, some things you just are not in control of. So that's going to be stuff like relationships, like starting a family, meeting the one, that girl that I want to marry, put a ring on her finger. Mental health, stuff like that. I've talked about, OCD, get into the other side of that. Family, my mom and my brothers, and my own family one day. So you have that stuff that's a little harder to put defined metrics on because, like I said, and Blake said, you ultimately can't really force that to happen. It's something that's organic, and whatnot. But so what I can do, I can share with you my quantitative metrics. And like I said, these are all, subject to change.
What do the numbers mean?
Huh?
I said, what do the numbers mean?
What are the numbers, Mason? So I have here on my whiteboard, different like segments of the next couple years. I have like a 1 to 2 years, a 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 plus, whatnot, all subject to change, but it's something I see every day. So subconsciously, programming the mind to attract that. Again, some of my hippy dippy bullshit. But so 1 to 2
Did you watch The
years,
Secret
I
before
want.
this, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. 1 to 2 years, I want to get my first storage facility. So I've talked about real estate investing on here a decent bit. I don't remember what episode that was where I really broke down why self-storage. And I'm not going to dive into that right now. But my goal is within 1 to 2 years, that first facility. And then I have a monetary goal of a salary range that I want by January when reviews come. And then this is where it gets fun. 3 to 5 years, Cameron, you'll appreciate this. It's my first fun monetary goal. I want a Porsche 996 Turbo, and I want to slap some lowering springs on that bitch and some HREs. Can be sweet.
Oh my god! Most people don't even know what you said.
Exactly.
Do some what? Slap what on what? Who? We're slapping what?
And then I have on there like approximately 75,000 square feet. So that'd be like 3 facilities and whatnot. And like I said, subject change. That's all very, I want to say ambiguous. That's not the fucking word, but whatever. 5 to 10 years, I have the financial freedom mark. So that means, I have investments that are producing the same, if not more, cash per month than my 9 to 5 job will be. And then I also have the Cameron, you'll appreciate this again, the 997 gray red GT3 RS 2011.
So you just have like financial security goal, buy a Porsche.
Hey, these Porsches are assets. They just
become a little bit more financially secure, buy a Porsche.
Buy a
little bit more financially secure, buy a Porsche.
And then Cameron, you're even gonna love this. So 11 plus, car bar. So Blake, we've talked about car bar.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that on this podcast because that's some intellectual property and the patent is pending.
You fuckers are gonna steal it. Talking to our listeners.
And dream property. So it is one of my dreams to have like 10 to 15 acres and just really have like a compound where I can build my own garage, do whatever the fuck I want, no HOA, fuck HOAs, and then just I don't know, have fucking 4-wheelers, or maybe I want to have some goats in my front yard.
I knew you were gonna say goats.
Hell yeah!
Or the goats.
Hell
dude.
yeah! Get some goats, brother.
But I can do whatever the fuck I want, and that's the point of it. And then I have on there car storage. So I have all these metrics of storage facility numbers I want. I think something that would be cool once I, have the money, like the fuck you money, is to go and do a fun business that, of course, all business you want to produce return. And I would with this one, but this is car storage. Like that's something way more cool to me. Yeah, and that's Brian's life in the next 11 plus years. So stay tuned.
Nice.
Cheers. Good shit,
Solid.
Ryan. Cameron, you want to go next?
Oof. All right. Mine's much different from Brian's. I started backwards and I didn't even get to like and I probably should have this by now, but my life's just been so up in the air, like I said, for the past 3 years, that I don't have like my next 5 to 10 years. I really just started from the end. I said, all right, I want to live to 100. I think I'm healthy enough, and I think medicine and modern medicine is good enough to where I'll live to 100. And so I just put some general goals, and that's what I think you're talking about ambiguous. I think you're just talking about general. It's just general things. You want to hit these landmarks. At 100, I want to be still physically self-capable, like meaning I can get around and do all my own stuff on my own at 100. So that's a big like physical
goal.
Yeah. I mean, so that's what I'm talking about. Like I didn't really hit just like the next 10 years because it's still also up in the air. I mean, I have ideas for what I want to do in the next 10 years and in 5 years and 1 year, but just for the sake of this podcast, like I didn't write them down. I started backwards and didn't quite get to the end of like what I'm going to do this year. But yeah, and then I mean, obviously I'm going to be great grandfather at that point. I just want a legacy of, I wrote 3 things. There's probably like a dozen more I could have written down, but I wrote love, wisdom, and fulfillment. So fulfillment is part of what we're talking about, reaching our goals, setting goals and reaching them. I want to be somebody who fulfills what they talk about and who just, fulfills their life and a fulfilling life, to say it 3 more times,
Nice.
But those are just super general things. And then I also put a wife of 70 plus years. So
wow,
by the time I'm 100, so that means I don't want to be married before I'm 30 and be married to one woman for the rest of my life. Like that's a big long-term goal for me.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I put is living on hundreds of acres of family land. So family land, like we don't have any family land yet. Like I don't come from much. My family doesn't have anything. But I want land that me and I guess my sons, if I don't buy it on my own already, then me and my sons buy, like we have family land, hundreds of acres in one space to do kind of what Brian was talking about, have whatever we want there, be able to sustain ourselves and whoever else,
that sounds awesome.
friends and etc. Those are long lifetime goals. And that goes with some of the knowledge that I have already in real estate. Like it's not going to start with, I'm not just going to save up and then one day buy hundreds of acres. I'm going to have real estate before then. I'm going to have small plots of land, bigger plots of land, different rental assets, like you said, with self-storage and just housing for families. I want different assets all over the country and really all over the world. But those are the main, most general goals I could come up with long term. Like 100 years old, like I'm getting ready to die. Like, what do I want to have accomplished?
The Campbell compound.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Damn.
Nice ring to it.
Hell
I
yeah.
like it.
Those are some good goals.
Yeah.
All right, Blake, do us the honor.
I'm next.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm a slut for a good quote, so I'll start off with this.
I love that tune.
So a quote that I consistently kind of have bouncing around in my mind. I don't even know who said it. Honestly, it might have been fucking Teddy Roosevelt. I feel like all my quotes are from him.
he says everything.
Are you gonna get it tatted, Blake?
Honestly, this wouldn't be a bad tattoo. But so it goes. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation, and I feel like that's got some truth to it. I feel like that's got a lot of weight to it, and so that is something that I for sure do not want to, live my life in is in desperation. So that's kind of like the theme for the goals that I have in my life is, and Cameron, you said it best in you know having a life of fulfillment, just doing things that make you feel fulfilled as a human being. And so when I think about the future, I kind of break my goals up into personal and professional, and professional kind of ties within personal. And I've always kind of got running through the back of my mind my professional goals. In high school, I always tried real hard to secure my future. Propel myself to getting into a good university to sustain myself, getting into a good job, and you know, I for as long as I can remember, I've always been really interested in like space, more specifically like aerospace. That's kind of why I went down the path of engineering. Um, and so that's kind of what's led me to where I'm at right now. And ever since I started my job working for the Navy, I've kind of started to question my overall goal of working for an aerospace company, you know, it, being part of the machine, um, you know, because it seems like whenever you enter into industry, you're part of a 9 to 5, which as we all know isn't always a 9 to 5. A lot of times it's a 7 to 6, very often, especially at the beginning of your career. And so I've really done a lot of thinking since starting um, since starting life out of college of what I actually want in life. And I think the best way to meet fulfillment and enjoyment out of life is working for myself. I think a lot of us can attest to this. I've I fucking hate it when people tell me what to do. I don't like it. I don't like having a boss. I don't like people, telling me how I should think or how I should do things. So ultimately, I want to, own my own business, or at least be in a position where I'm working with other people as an owner of a business. Kind of making my own decisions and building my own future rather than building someone else's future. And so that's how I think meeting fulfillment would work out. Um, and I've also always told myself that I want to move out west. I want to live on some land. I think that's something that we've all wanted to have. I don't know how many. 10 to 15. That sounds like a decent bit, but 100 acres sounds good too. So
Bro,
I
I
don't know.
almost wrote down thousands.
1 million acres. That's what I'm doing. I'm going with 1 million acres.
Probably
um,
doable.
I don't know. Just a decent amount of land that I can call my own, that I can do whatever I want on. And the the intermediate steps to get into that point are going to be ones that help secure me financially so that I can reach that goal, so that I can work for myself and have my own land. Don't know what, I don't know what I'm going to do with it once I get it, but I want it. so so yeah, that's where my professional goals ultimately end up, is working for myself, kind of doing my own thing. And then more personally, I feel like I never really put much emphasis on developing personal goals. And I've already told you guys, uh, I've had a girlfriend for about a month and a half now, and it's really started to make me wonder what I want personally in my life, because that's just something I've never really put a whole lot of emphasis on for whatever reason. Um, and so I do, ever since I was little, I do know that like I want a family. I do want a wife for maybe 70 plus years. I don't know, 30 kind of seems scary to get married at 30, but I mean that's 7 years away. I'm 23 right now. I feel like I should start thinking about that. We're all getting older. Um, so yeah, I feel like the professional stuff is more, at least a little bit more cemented in my brain, whereas the whole personal goal is something that I should probably start focusing on here in the short term. Kind of developing a framework of what I want that to look like, so I can be proactive and make it happen. But
Nice.
I sure as hell am not going to be living on that 1 million acres with just me, myself, and I. Probably
Right.
have at least one wife. At least.
Wow.
That
That's
was a
one
joke.
thing that
That was
at
a
least
joke.
was.
Yeah, with a
You
wife.
have 100 acres in Utah.
At least
with the
2
My
kids.
wife.
No, I gotta go to Mexico for that. They don't allow that.
Oh, true. That's true.
No.
It's funny. So Blake wants multiple wives. Got it.
That's the takeaway.
Life goal.
Nice. I've been writing down all of your goals that y'all have said each, and it's pretty funny how similar a lot of ours are. Fulfillment is a word that's been tossed around. Land. One thing I did not even think about was living to 100. That's kind of funny, Cameron. Living to 100. I don't know if I want to live that damn long. I'll be honest.
I do. I definitely do. Which means we're about a quarter way.
Mhm.
Almost there. A couple of years away from a quarter way done with our lives.
Hey, you stop that shit right now. All right?
Hey, if you're only talking about 80, then you're already past a quarter.
So, as Blake is, I am also a slut for a good quote. And this one I found earlier, and I think it's pretty cool. Teddy Roosevelt. No, I'm just playing. Leonardo da Vinci. You will never have a greater or lesser dominion than that over yourself. You will never have a greater or lesser dominion than that over yourself. And I think that pretty much aligns with the way that with what my worldview is, the way that I think about the world. What I want in my life is, I want dominion over myself because I don't trust anyone else to have it. That goes professionally, politically, and familially, right? Anyway, I'll quit playing around here. So the way that I categorize my long-term goals, I'm really just going to stick long-term here. I call them the 4 Fs. The 4 Fs. Okay. And I go not necessarily in priority, but I'll start out. First F is faith. Okay. I'm a very religious guy. I come from a religious background, and having a strong relationship and a strong conviction in my faith is very important to me. Second is family. Okay. So what I mean by family, Cameron, like you, I plan on getting married once. I don't want to have multiple wives like Blake. As awesome as that would be. No, I'm just playing, bro. But yeah, no, that's a process. And, I kind of want to counter the, tradition not tradition, but the numbers game that we have in our country right now where divorce is almost more common than not. Right. I want to get that done once,
Yeah.
And,
same.
I want to start a family, and I want to be head of the household. I want to have a loving house, a house where I can command respect, but also, give it back and raise some good kids and establish a legacy, like you said, Cameron, earlier. Third, finance, and Brian probably got a little excited there hearing that word, finance. So going back to, the quiet desperation, Blake, I think that's a really good way of putting it. That's kind of like the thing that makes me lose sleep at night. It's not having dominion over yourself, not, being able to take control of your life and having someone else kind of controlling it, kind of sacrificing that freedom there. And so long term, I want to have mastery over my finances. Eventually how, stay tuned, and we're going to continue to talk about that. But obviously real estate is one of the primary things of how I plan on getting that done. I've got an entrepreneurial spirit. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I'm very lucky to be trained and raised in that. And that's kind of one thing that I want to do. Also, I think one of the most overrated things in life is retirement. Okay. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but I wrote a note here when I was jotting stuff down earlier. Like, I don't ever want to retire. I know that sounds dumb, but I don't ever want to retire. I want to continue to chase something, because the day that I'm not chasing anything is the day that I die. And I see that a lot. Like, if you go back and you look at past generations, so past generations worked with one company for 50 years. They worked at the plant. They got their pension. They retired to the couch, and they sat in front of the TV, and that was it. 3 years later, they were dead. And, that's not what I want with my life. I want to chase things that I care about. I want to chase things. I want to be there for my family. I want to have that freedom through, financial freedom. But I also want to always be chasing something that means a lot to me, and something that I can create meaning in my life. And then fourth, and it's funny that you guys, basically all three of you said this, my fourth F is fulfillment.
Wow.
Yeah. And, basically the easiest way I can describe fulfillment is, okay, you're surrounded by your family. You've lived for 100 years in your case, Cameron, and I believe that you will. But you're surrounded by your family, and you're about to take your last breath, and you have that last thought, and you sit there and you ask yourself, did I do a good job? Did I do all the things in this life that I wanted to? And that's a tough conversation that you have to have with yourself. And we all have to face that at one point, and so that's the way I look at fulfillment is, did I achieve my life's purpose? And, right now I'm still looking for that. I have a pretty good idea. But the specifics have still not been worked out. And so that's what I'm looking for, though, in the long term, is fulfillment. Just so that when it all is said and done, I can lay my head down and be at peace with the life that I've lived and the world and the legacy that I've created. But that basically wraps it up. Some of those specifics have changed, but the 4 Fs, I think, really stand pat for me, and those will never change.
I like those 4 Fs. Yeah, those are good.
Yeah.
Some of those.
Yeah. My short-term goals, though, definitely change much more rapidly. Like, right now, going back to what we talked about earlier, Brian, like taking a gap year. I kind of call the state of life that I'm in right now a gap year. I've got about a year until the job that I've accepted with a good company starts, due to COVID concerns and other stuff. So, I've got a really good job waiting for me. And right now I'm just kind of taking the gap year, trying to figure out, okay, these 4 Fs are like what I want in life. So what do I need to be doing now to get towards that? And,
it's a good mindset.
It's been a lot of like contemplation. I think going back to what we talked about earlier with the routine and stuff, being in a routine leads to productivity. And I can tell you that personally right now, I'm not always the most productive guy, but where a routine can be taken out, contemplation can be added in, right? So like when you have more free time, you're able to kind of plan and think. So those two things I think are important to understand. Anyway, I'll hop off my soapbox here. And
you made a good
point
point there, and I don't want to diminish it because I've heard similar things. So, so there's two things I want to say right here that are just golden nuggets. So I listen and consume a lot of media. We talked about this earlier. That is entrepreneurship, finance, investing related, and a common theme when you have like a business owner, somebody of high esteem or success, and when they're reflecting on, that great idea they had that got them to where they're at, they said those come to them when they're on the beach playing with their kids, or when they remove themselves from the day-to-day of working on the business, and maybe we're in nature or something, and we're in a total decompressed state of mind, to where they were free flowing and ideas could come out and then come in.
Absolutely.
come out.
Definitely.
The second one, which we're all 23, 24? Are we all 23?
Is anyone?
Jordan
I don't
year.
think anyone's 24 in here.
20
Yeah,
Jordan
so
year, baby.
We're all 23. Another thing they said, and this is not that we all want to be billionaires or whatever, but we do want a certain stream of financial security and independence. A lot of them say out of all the billionaires they've met, they see one commonality between them is they found what they wanted to do and they found it early and they didn't stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's where passion comes into play. You gotta find something you're passionate about.
Definitely. For sure.
So just
that's gonna fulfill
2 little pieces of gold at the end of the episode right there for your listeners.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we went deep on this, and this is this was fun, honestly.
This is a powerful podcast,
stuff.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey, real quick, just a last question, just before we get off. So this is one thing I think about a lot, and I want to get y'all's take on this. So, where is the fine line have to be drawn from where you are either? Have y'all heard the term like master of all, or
Jack
help me out here? No. Well, kind of master
Jack
of
all trades or master of one.
None. Master of none.
Oh.
All right, help me out here. You know what I'm getting at, though.
I know
like,
what you're
kind
talking
of
about.
like getting real good at one thing versus like being decently good at a lot of things.
Yes,
or being
exactly.
average at a lot of things.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm blanking on jack of all trades, master of none is one way to put it.
Yeah.
But what y'all's thought on that? Do you think that it's important for people to be like so hyper focused on one thing that they aren't well rounded, or do you think like being well rounded is important, or do you think it's overrated?
I think you get narrow early and extract all the value out of that, and then that gives you the freedom to choose if you want to pursue other things.
Yeah,
cool. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, so I consider myself. I've contemplated this a lot because I found myself being a master of none almost throughout sports, throughout classes in high school and college, throughout almost my whole life. I have excelled. I mean, there's almost, I don't want to be cocky or anything. There's almost been nothing that I can't like excel at, like be better than average. But have I taken it to the state of like mastery and like being overly exceptional at something? No, nothing, almost nothing I've done have I taken it to that level in. And so I consider myself a generalist. And I think it's different for everybody. Everybody has different different styles, different experiences, and they act differently. So I think for me, I'm a generalist. I like to take 20% of the time and effort to learn 80% of the knowledge and skill at something versus somebody that takes that last 20% of knowledge and skill but spends an extra 80% of their time on it. So it's different for everybody. It's the 20-80 rule. Tim Ferriss has talked about this a lot. And I consider myself a generalist. And that's one big reason I want to be an entrepreneur is I feel like the earliest definitions of entrepreneur is somebody that that places resources like efficiently. So it's not just building businesses, it's being good with resources and being able to understand and listen to somebody that maybe is a specialist or a master in one field and listen to somebody that is a specialist or master in another field and maybe get them to work together or work on the things that are most important for them, so that's what I consider myself as a generalist. And it's kind of hard because I'm not exactly a master at anything. There's not anything that I found myself like wanting to be a master at, but some people just like get that urge and that feeling inside of them that they have to be the best at this one thing, and that one thing is they have a purpose for that. So
Yeah,
everybody's different, honestly, on that level.
Yeah, I asked that question, Cameron, because I relate with your mindset there as well. Sometimes focusing on being good at many things opposed to just like you said, just zoning in on that one thing. But like Brian mentioned earlier, and this is just basically fact, specialization breeds demand, and demand breeds money and need and success. So it's like, okay, how can you balance those two things to where you're able to be, a jack of all trades, but also be a specialist in a capacity. It's just something to think about, and it's something that I think about a lot as well. I think,
so maybe like, just not that this is an exact example, but Blake is a great engineer, and say he was just super passionate, just was an amazing engineer, and just knew everything about engineering, and I don't even know which specific field to go into, but they would need to be more specific than just engineering in general. But maybe he's not the best businessman, or maybe he's not the best spokesperson. There needs to be other people there to say, all right, we're gonna take this engineer, we're gonna take this spokesperson, we're gonna take this businessman, and they're gonna create a business that's actually gonna create value. Whereas the engineer by himself or the businessman by himself couldn't do that,
Right.
So it takes somebody to bring it all together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's almost like the conductor at the symphony, right? That's kind of the role that an entrepreneur or a business owner kind of plays. Yep. CEO, CFO, that type of role. But anyway, all right, y'all ready to wrap this up?
I am.
I'll be honest, this was a really cool pod. A lot of good stuff, a lot of deep stuff. I feel like we kind of just, for this 10th episode, just wanted to, share with you guys our outlook on life, what we expect, what we hope, and what we are grinding towards every day. And we'd love to hear back from what you guys are looking for, like what your goals are, what you're wanting to accomplish in this life. Maybe we differ, maybe we agree. So just let us know. We appreciate you listening, and look forward to episode 11, and maybe down the road, episode 1 million. Who knows? But stay tuned and we'll find out together. So cheers, guys. This is BFT. We got Cameron, Blake, Brian, and Garrett signing off. Cheers.